welcome back to the perspective. Professor, how can these partnerships, not limited to Latrobe University, partnerships with other countries or or other universities in Australia can help Indonesia to fill in this gap, the shortage of talent?
Yes. Well, look, as I said, I think there's a lot that can be contributed here. The first way would be to identify where the skills gaps are at their greatest, and then to work collaboratively to try and meet that gap. Now that can be done either by helping to build capacity here, and there are ways in which any Australian university, or indeed any international university, could work with a local partner to help them build up capacity and know-how and knowledge. And then obviously there's the option of students coming offshore, studying overseas, and then bringing their skills and knowledge back with them. But it probably does require a bit of sort of government to government or government to institution collaboration, perhaps through the scholarship bodies, to make sure that the investments that are being made are well targeted. There are a lot of joint programs already between the two governments. I mentioned the new Colombo plan, but that's really about Australian students coming to Indonesia. There's also the Australia Awards, which bring Indonesian students to Australia. So there's already a good foundation there on which to build, but I think there's a lot more that could be done.
Speak of balance, do you think there's this balancer between private sector partnership and public partnership, in this case the government to government, and not just private university to university? Is there enough work done on the public side?
Within Indonesia, do you mean?
Yeah.
Look, it's not a subject on which with which I'm very familiar, but I would imagine that the challenge for a country with the scale of population you have here is always going to be making education available at the higher levels to enough people. And as I've said, Indonesia is not alone in this challenge. But if you looked at the way in which, say, China has addressed this problem, I think they're taking a sensible approach of broadening participation across a whole range of institutions whose mission is not particularly research focused. It is about equipping students with very good professional, vocational and technical qualifications, reserving the role of being a powerful research institution to a relatively small number of universities. Now, this is not the way we do it in Australia. Every Australian university wants to play at being a powerful research university. I'm not sure that that's actually the best way to invest resources. I'm delighted to say that Latrobe is a very powerful research university, so perhaps I'm speaking from a slightly privileged vantage point. But as I said before, I think the trick is to get that balance right, to ensure enough people have access, while at the same time ensuring that there's enough research innovation happening in the system that can power the next wave of economic activity.
Now, aside from student exchange and programs, what other opportunities lies ahead for Indonesia and Australia in the education sector?
Oh, look, I think there are lots of opportunities. I think there's a lot of scope for research collaboration. We look in awe, to be honest, at the scale of both the challenges that Asian societies face, but also the amazing response in terms of investment that's being made in addressing these issues. And I believe that Australian universities, although we're quite small relative to the rest of the world, we have a lot to offer in terms of sharing our research expertise, whether that's in high-end science or medicine or in delivery of health services or in education. There's a lot that I think can be done in collaboration between the two countries. As I said, I think there's a really good platform from which to work, and I'm absolutely certain that were either government to invite Australian universities to play a part, we would absolutely be there.
We'd also like to think that these partnerships actually should be driving the education sector, especially for Indonesia, to increase its competitiveness with other countries.
Yes.
Malaysia, Singapore is up ahead, and so that for universities, may it be public or private, to continue to increase quality and adopt innovations for them to provide better education quality, and we're yet to see this happen here in Indonesia. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm a big believer in the power of government. I think government does have an important
Political
role.
will.
Yes. It's not a good period, it seems, in world history to believe in the power of government, but I think in the area of higher education, I think governments can play a really important role. Having said that, there are undoubtedly some great private institutions around the world, as there are here in Indonesia, and I'm certain that just as you have a mixed economy in healthcare, I'm certain that you can successfully create a mixed economy of public and private institutions in higher education as well. And there's no harm in a little bit of competition between the two sectors.
Of course. Now, you will be on the road, back on the road again,
Yes.
once you leave Jakarta. If you don't mind sharing with us just a little bit, what would those constitute more partnerships with our key universities around?
So we go next to Hong Kong, where we're hosting another event for our alumni, and then we go back to China to visit another partner university in Chengdu in the west of China, and then after that I go to Beijing, where I'm joining up with a Victorian state government trade mission, and I'll be attending a trade and investment lunch. Higher education is now increasingly seen as part of the trade and investment landscape, which goes back to some of the themes we've already touched on. So that will be an important meeting for me and I hope for the others there in Beijing.
All right. Well, Professor, thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us a little bit of your journey, trying to lock in all these key partnerships. That has been The Perspective with Professor John Dewar, the Vice Chancellor and President of Latrobe University, to talk about the education opportunities between Indonesia and Australia. Thank you for watching.